Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio, and we're giving away a free booklet called The Living Stone, A Journey of Transformation. It's yours absolutely free. All you got to do is go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on resources, and fill out the form. We'll send one in the mail. Alan, this is important because people need to build their relationship with Jesus. I mean, we got to switch things up here. I mean, things are not working, and I think you and I are onto something. It's because, yes, we go to church on Sunday. Yes, we do our 15-minute devotional, but we really don't have that really tight, deep in Genesis, when Adam and Eve are walking in the garden with Jesus, conversation type relationship with him, right?
You're talking about the average person? Or you're talking
I'm
about
talking. You and I. My goodness, yeah. I if anything, we spend too much time with Jesus. He's like, what do you guys want? I just saw you 5 minutes ago. Yeah, I'm talking about the average person.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a relationship, and I know people go, oh, I know that I have a relationship with Jesus, but we really hone into, do you really? I mean, like, a relationship takes time. It takes conversation. You got to spend hours. My wife and I, our first date, we sat in a coffee shop and talked for 4 hours in a deep conversation until the waitress said, when are you guys leaving? We looked up. The place is completely empty. All the chairs are up on the tables. Like, they're ready to close the store. That's how intense our conversation was. And because we were building a relationship. That's kind of what your relationship with Jesus needs to be, right? That one-on-one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that, it's interesting, the question I always ask people is, they always say, well, they know who God is, and they know that God loves them and everything else, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I ask them the question, well, does God know you?
Right.
And of course they kind of like, well, what are you talking about? Of course he knows me, he knows everything. And I go, well, Jesus said, I never knew you. I never knew you. And he was talking about people that were involved in ministry, driving out demons, doing many miracles, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
And he said, I didn't know you. So this personal relationship with Jesus is very important. And it's where you need to spend time with the Lord. And you don't necessarily, going to church is yes, it's important, but basically you actually become the church, because the Spirit of Christ lives in you, and the sanctuary is you. You are the sanctuary,
right,
that the Spirit of God lives in. And so you need to understand it. It gets deep, but it's important for you to understand that.
Yeah. Absolutely. One person who understands it is our next guest, Michael Wagner. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Good to have you, especially after the election. You got smiles on your face, man. Is that a good sign? I mean, were you surprised on election night? Anything happened that you were just like, whoa, that took me by surprise? Or did you figure out that's pretty much what was going to happen?
Well, it wasn't a huge surprise, but what did surprise me was the polling had been indicating a Liberal majority government, and they fell short by a few seats. So I was surprised that they didn't get a majority, just because I was believing all the polls. And the polls were close to being correct, just not really correct. I mean, the polls did not reflect the degree of conservative support. It did surprise me that the Conservatives, I think, got over 41% of the popular vote, which is the biggest percentage they've had since the 1980s. So there was a couple of surprising things in the polls for sure, or in the election results for sure.
Michael, I always said that if Mr. Carney gets in the election, that's a for sure go ahead for Alberta to start talking about becoming independent. Is that your thought as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the last time I was on here, we were actually talking about a column by Preston Manning where he kind of indicated that himself, saying that if Mark Carney was to win, that there will be, a rebellion in the West and people will start talking about independence. And he was certainly correct about that. And there's a lot of talk now about Western independence out here. And in fact, one of the things that pleased me greatly was yesterday, the Western Standard officially endorsed the idea of a Western independence and Alberta independence. I've been writing for them for, about 5 years, and they always gave me the freedom to write about those kinds of issues. Like I've been in favor of independence for a while, and I'd write columns in favor of that, and they didn't mind that. In fact, one of their key people at Western Standard is Corey Morgan, and about 25 years ago, he was founding an independence party here for Alberta. So he's been on board for a while, but not everybody in the organization would support Alberta independence. I mean, still not everybody will, but the election had enough of an impact on people there that they were willing to now officially commit a Western Standard to supporting Western and Alberta independence. So I was very pleased when I saw that, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Michael, do you think that's even okay? Because I'm going to go with the pattern of Canadians. Let's just take Albertans. We can never agree on anything, especially on the conservative side. So a little party pops up here, an unknown party pops up here, another one pops up here. This is my fear, is now that we're talking about Alberta independence, that all these groups are going to pop up and go, independent our side. And then it's just going to be, chaos and confusion. Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think there could be one leader out there that says, hey, independence, and everyone joins that one kind of group of independence? Or do you think we're going to see it split into like 15 different little pop-ups all over the place?
Well, I think it's going to start out much like you described. I mean, that's the way it is right now, for the most part, quite divided. Some of the groups are talking among themselves to try and get unity, but I don't think they've made very significant progress that way. So I think in the short term and maybe the medium term, it'll be kind of just like what you said. So in that sense, it'll be quite disappointing. But I think that if the idea gets more traction, I think that will spur someone to come forward. And I'm assuming it would be someone from the business community. I mean, it's got to be someone from the political or the business community with prominence in the community who's respected widely in the province. It would take someone like that to become the kind of leader Alberta would need to unify the movement in the way that you're talking about. And right now, I don't think there's anybody in the political sphere who's going to, come out that way. But very well, it could be a businessman. Kind of like the way Trump was a businessman before he made his big move in the United States to unite the populace there. So like I say, I don't know the future, but my expectation would be that it's more likely to be someone from the business community, a respected person in the business community, who can come forward and say, look, we've got to do this. And something like that would be what it takes to unite the various groups. If there was a respected leader, there will always be some splinter groups. Like there's some people that will never be able to work with other people, I think. But for the most part, I think a good leader, someone who people can look up to, I think that something like that would be able to unite the movement. So I think that'd be the key factor, actually. If someone like that never emerges, I'm afraid we're going to, might end up just in a situation like you described, where we're just going to have various people and groups fighting among themselves for the support. But I think this is serious enough, and I think there's going to be enough of a wave of support that hopefully someone who's respectable will come forward and bring the movement together.
Give me some names. I want to hear some names. And why is your name not in there? You've had this dream since you were a teenager. You have to be involved somehow, right? What is your involvement if you were to be involved?
Well, like my role all along has been to present the position for Alberta independence. Like I'm not a leader. Like leadership requires certain qualities, and I don't have those qualities. I mean, and that's fine. That's okay with me. Like I'm happy. I've been doing research on this for years and writing about it and speaking about it, and that's my role. My role is to advocate for Alberta independence, and I feel good about that. I feel comfortable doing that. But I'm not a leader, and I won't put myself forward. I just want to be there to help the person that comes forward, who can really do that job.
So is it a right assumption that you would assume that Danielle Smith would not be that leader?
Like it doesn't look like it. She's still very much talking about the importance of Canadian unity and keeping Alberta in Canada. So so far, like there haven't been any indications that way. I mean, perhaps there would be something that would provoke her. She does have, a pretty good profile, obviously, in the province, and especially among conservative-minded people. If she decided to do it, she's the kind of person who might be able to pull it together. But certainly, she hasn't been doing that so far. The Alberta Sovereignty Act is, the title of it is the Alberta Sovereignty within a United Canada Act. So all along, her emphasis has been trying to exercise Alberta's muscle within Canada. And there's still, that would be the preference, I think, generally speaking, of most Albertans. would be to keep Alberta within Canada under better circumstances, like with a better deal. I think that's what most people would support, but that doesn't seem to be an option that's open to us. And that's what I've been writing about, that we've tried so many things for decades to try and bring a better situation for Alberta within Canada, because that's what most people here would want. But if that door is closed, then the only door that's open, that's only door that's left, is for us to start moving towards independence. Maybe people in Eastern Canada will take a notice of what we're doing and how frustrated we've been, and make the kind of changes we want. But in the meantime, the only option we have really is to move towards independence, in my view.
Well, Prime Minister Carney, he is not going to have anything to do with fossil fuels. I mean, his agenda is, the green plan all along, and our oil and everything else that we have in this province is not in his plan whatsoever. In fact, the closing down of it and the destruction of it seems to be what's in his plan.
That's certainly the impression I've had from all the things I've read about him. I mean, essentially, he's kind of like a version of Justin Trudeau without the Trudeau name. I mean, the Trudeau name is a liability out here to begin with. And so at least they got rid of the Trudeau name as a liability, but the content of the policies are still there, and possibly even accelerating those policies in terms of harming our oil and gas industry, which of course would lead to a loss of jobs and loss of prosperity here. And we don't need to lose those things. We need to keep our energy industry strong so that we can have prosperity for the future and for our children. And so Mark Carney is very much a threat to this province. And unless he actually takes steps otherwise, we need to just operate on the principle that he's going to move forward with Justin Trudeau's policies against our oil industry.
I want to know, I'm stuck on who's this mysterious person out there that's going to get all the cats together. You know what I mean? Because it's just chaos. Albertans can't agree on anything. I think we're going to see a bunch of old names pop up. You know what I mean? Like the Preston Mannings of the world, maybe a Stockwell Day, maybe all these names. What I appreciate about you, Michael, is you're not thirsty for power. You know your role, and you're happy to sit in there in your role and continue to do it. I agree about a businessman, but it's like my fear is the way we treat the federal elections and how we have all these splinter groups, go all over. We're going to have the exact same battle inside our own province. Unless, I'm guessing the Lord has someone in mind, but I want to know who this mysterious person is.
Yeah, well, I don't want to speculate. I don't want to say any names because I might face a lawsuit or something like that. And I haven't compiled a list of names. Like, there's people sometimes I see like, oh, that would be a good guy. You know what I mean? But again, like it wouldn't be fair for me to mention someone's name in public if they haven't declared themselves or indicated any support that way. And so, you know what, you really identified one of the biggest potential threats to the success of the movement. Like when you're talking about the
Sure.
divisiveness that we've seen, there's no question we've had that in the past. Actually, that's kind of the pattern over several decades among the independence movement of people fighting like that.
Sure.
And so, I mean, the past is a precursor to the future, at least for the near future. And so, when you talk about that, there's no question that you're talking about the truth. And that's something we have to take into consideration. And hopefully, we can get some kind of movement towards unity. But most likely that would require, a respected leader to come forward.
Alan already got a letter in the mail. Alan, you want to read that a little bit? I mean, he's already getting, was it a letter, Alan, that you got about the Republic of Alberta or something to that effect?
Yeah.
We're already getting stuff, and it's like, this is what I'm saying. Our future for the next few months is all this, you're going to be bombarded by all these names and groups and stuff. I mean, Alan, can you read that, a little bit of that? We don't even know who this is, right? Well, you read it to me before the show.
I know. Keep talking and I'll find it. Okay.
Well, I'm sure. Okay, Michael, who have you heard? What groups have you heard that are out there? Let's start there. Are there any yet that that are poking their head out of the?
I found it.
Okay.
It's called the Republican Party of Alberta. And
This
it basically said Alberta has been betrayed again. Eastern Canada made its choice, and once again, Alberta is left to pay the price. The Carney Liberals, backed by Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa elites, have seized power, setting the stage for more attacks on our economy, our freedoms, and our way of life. Albertans power, Albertans power the Canadian economy. We feed its people and we defend its freedoms. And time after time, we are repaid by disdain, hostility, and policies designed to cripple our industries and silence our voices. Tonight's election is just the latest slap in the face for every hardworking Albertan who dares to dream of a better future for their family. Confederation is broken. The system's stacked against us, and it's getting worse, not better. No more false promises. No more waiting on Ottawa to get it. They won't. They will never. The message is loud and clear. Alberta's place in Canada is to be used, taxed, regulated, and then blamed. The Republican Party of Alberta stands for something different. We believe Alberta is strong enough, smart enough, and tough enough to stand on its own. We believe in an Alberta that answers only to Albertans, not to the elites who don't respect us. This is not the end. It is the beginning of a movement that will not rest until Alberta is free to control its own destiny. Enough is enough. Alberta's future will not be written by Ottawa. It will be written by Albertans. Stand with us. Fight for your future.
Who are you, though? Who are they? Do we know?
The Republican Party of
That's what
Alberta.
I'm saying. Right. Michael, what are your thoughts on that?
There's no name.
Like I love the content of that letter. That certainly expresses my sentiment. So I was feeling good, listening to that. So that's the Republican Party. My understanding is that used to be known as the Buffalo Party, and they recently changed their name to the Republican Party. But there's also the Independence Party of Alberta. There's also the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta. There's also the Wild Rose Loyalty Coalition and the Advantage Party of Alberta, and they all have generally share the same view of Alberta needing to move towards independence. I might have missed out on one of the parties, I'm not sure, but that's just an example of small parties, and I have friends in each one of them, and I'm willing to speak for any of them that ask me to speak for them, but some of them don't get along among each other, but hopefully they are trying to reconcile that. But again, like you say, it has been a perpetual problem of small groups not getting along when they have the same goal for Alberta independence, and that's an obstacle to achieving the goal ultimately.
Yeah, well, maybe we need a mediator first, someone to mediate between those groups, and then we'll find a leader. Go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry. It's just
I was told that probably what would best happen is that Alberta decide to be independent, and then in our independence we decide what kind of a role we want to play with the United States, for example, because we know that President Trump is still working on the possibility that the best thing for you people is to become a state, the 51st state. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what's happening. And of course, the media is going to be an interesting scenario and how they try to carry this through and encourage Albertans to stay in Canada.
Yeah, well, like the first step would be for Alberta to become independent, but like as kind of you alluded to, there was actually a liberal MLA in Alberta more than 100 years ago named Alwyn Bramley Moore, and he wrote a book called Canada and Her Colonies, and he did not like the status that Alberta had in Canada at that time. So his proposal was actually for Alberta to withdraw from Canada and then just renegotiate its entrance back in on better terms. So it's kind of a crypto separatist book in the sense that he wanted Alberta to pull out, but he didn't want Alberta to remain independent. He wanted the independence just to be a negotiating tactic to renegotiate Alberta's way back in to Canada on better terms, because at that point, Alberta did not even have control of its resources, which would get in 1930, but at that point it didn't. And so this was his proposal for improving Alberta's status. So whether it was along the lines of what Alan was talking about or something like that, that's actually something I could see that some people would support. Like, let's pull out and renegotiate our way back in. Then we would be in Canada, but it'd be on our terms and not on the current terms where we're suffering so much at the hands of federal government policies.
Can we talk about quickly what Premier Smith did, unveiling the major updates to the Citizen Initiative Act? Now only 177,000 signatures are required to trigger a referendum on Alberta independence, down from 600,000. Plus, the collection of the signatures can extend from 90 days to 120. I think they've already passed the 177,000 already on day one after that happened. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's going to make a difference? Do you think that helps?
Yes, for sure it makes a difference. For sure it helps. And I think that's why she did that, because the citizen initiative proposal, is for Alberta citizens to be able to put something forward that requires the government to hold a referendum in this particular case. And the Alberta Prosperity Project is trying to work towards that. But 600,000 people, 600,000 signatures in 3 months, that's a huge, huge task. And I mean, it's almost a hurdle that's too high to actually achieve. And so now with what Premier Smith's proposing, it brings that hurdle much lower than it was before, and it makes it very achievable. So if there's something that's very popular among the population, a group like the Alberta Prosperity Project should be able to get that many signatures within, the 120 days. And then the government would have to hold a referendum on independence if that was the proposal that the people put forward. And so that makes an independence referendum in Alberta much more likely than it would have been otherwise. So I think it's very important. And I think it's important that she did that right after the election, because, there is this wave of support now, and people thinking about Alberta independence for the very first time. And so that kind of opens a door in a sense, like it opens a door that wasn't really there before. I mean, it was there before, but it was too hard to open. Now people can't open it. And so I'd be surprised if they don't try to get that door open. Like it's likely to succeed, although, obviously I can't predict the future, but it is an important step. And it's something that she's done that's very helpful for Albertans who support independence.
Don't you think that's also kind of a signal about where she stands?
Well, you know what? It could be. I mean, she's in a difficult position, right? Because the UCP is officially a Federalist party. And I think the top leaders of that party, the top people in the party organization are Federalists. But like I've heard through the grapevine that there are, a number of people in the party, some perhaps elected officials even, who are interested in independence. So she's has to walk a fine line. And at least this way, she's kind of giving something to the independent supporters, but without endorsing it herself. So it's kind of like a middle of the road position, but it does indicate that she's not adverse to the idea of an independence referendum altogether.
So you think this is serious? Like this is really going to happen? Like our next couple of years, this is where we're going to go?
Well, I do think that that's kind of the direction of many people in the province right now. So there will be things happening. Now, whether we achieve independence or not, I can't say. But there's going to be lots of people and lots of organizations working in that direction. That's something I'm quite confident of. And so I do think that it's going to be very prominent in the public sphere in Alberta over the next few months, the idea of Alberta independence.
You mentioned something before we started recording about Preston Manning. You want to fill us in on that one?
Well, yeah, just this morning in the news, there was an article saying that Preston Manning is trying to create a Canada West Assembly, prominent citizens who would come together to discuss possible futures for Western Canada. And one of the possible futures, he was going to listen to proposals about the possibility of independence. That would be one of the proposals. Like there'd be other, proposals offered about strengthening the West's place within Canada. But at least he left the door open to the possibility of someone making a proposal for some kind of independence for Western Canada. So that I was glad to hear about that. I mean, that ties in exactly with what his Globe and Mail column of early April said, where he talked about the possibility of needing some kind of assembly like that would discuss the possibility of independence.
We got like 60 seconds left. Can you just give a good little argument why the rest of Canada should be on board with Alberta and its independence? Why should they support that? Because it'd be nice to have the country support Alberta in kind of shooting for that. I know this benefits Alberta. I know Alberta's had a bad deal all this time, but why should the rest of the country want to help support Alberta? Can you give me a good argument?
Well, I think Alberta independence would spark important changes within Canada. Like our system seems to have got kind of rusty and old. We had a good system for the first 100 years or so, but we've moved in the direction of centralism, especially beginning with Pierre Trudeau. I think that if Alberta pulled out and became independent, that could spur good positive changes within Canada itself. If people wanted to look at, reorganizing the country, back to more of a federalist position where the provinces would have more autonomy within the country. The federal government can just focus on the things the federal government should focus on, like foreign affairs, military, foreign trade, those kind of things, and let the provinces take care of their own affairs. I think Quebec especially would be interested in something like that, where they'd have more authority, for dealing with their internal matters. I guess that's what they've got already to a degree, but that would be possible for every province. So I think Canada as a structure, Canada would have a better structure if the provinces were able to move towards having more independence themselves from the federal government.
Good argument. Appreciate you, Michael. Thank you so much for being here. We'll definitely have you back. This conversation's not going away, so we'll definitely have you back.
Thank you so much. It's good to be with you guys always.
Alan, I'm not kidding. Albertans now are going to be divided, more than ever. It's in the blood. It's in the history. God has to do something here. Only God can help fix this mess.
And that's why you have to have someone who's willing to stand up and basically, put God back into our country, and definitely put God back into our province. God was very strong in the beginning of Alberta's history, and the leaders of our province were very much godly men, and we've got to get that back, because we cannot continue to go this way. And if you have somebody that doesn't believe in God, they're not going to carry it all the way through to true independence. You have to get back to that, and that's the key.
It's got to be someone who doesn't care about money, doesn't care about power, doesn't care about exclusivity, private meetings with, the prime minister and all this, glitz and glamour. It's got to be someone who doesn't care about any of that. He cares about what's best for the people, has compassion for the people, and fears the Lord. I mean, there's a laundry list of what this person's got to be. But the problem is the money and the power corrupts. And the Bible talks about it. Love of money is the root of all evil. And we've seen it over and over and over again. Lord, have mercy on us. Hopefully we can change it.
Amen.
You want to help support our mission, keep this kind of conversation on the air. We are viewer supported. We don't take government funds. We don't take private funds. We are viewer supported by the generosity of our viewers. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on the donate button. There's many different ways you can give digitally that way. If you'd like to do it through mail, you can. You can make your check payable to Heritage Christian Ministries Association and send it to 246 Stewart Green, Southwest, Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H 3C8. And if you'd like to pray for our nation or something that's going on in your life and you need the Lord to intervene, you can call our prayer line anytime, 1-800-915-0056 in Canada. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.